Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am super excited to share this video with you. I'll be showing you how to make this quick and easy reversible baby blanket. It's very beginner friendly. So if you're just learning to sew and you need some projects to get started with, I believe this one will be just right for you. These are the supplies that we will be using. So we have flannel and dacron and cotton and batting. So this is the flannel and the solid blue one is the dacron and cotton. And in the background, which I'll be showing you next, is the batting, which is 100% polyester fiber. So what I'll do next is to lay these out. I'll be placing the blue one at the bottom, which is the first layer. Then I am going to be placing the printed one on top of it, right sides together. It is important that you put the right sides together because when you're finished sewing and it's time to turn your project, you may find something that should be on the inside of the project ending up on the outside of the project. So that's not something that you want to happen. So it's important that you put the right sides together. After I'm through putting these two pieces together, I'm going to add the batting on top of the white one. So the white one will be in the middle. So there will be the blue at the bottom, the white in the middle, and the batting on top. Now I'm going to be using these pearl head pins to pin the design together, pin the project together, sorry. So when you're pinning, ensure that you pin on the side that you'll be sewing on. So in this case, I pin it on the blue side. I do not sew on the batting side because I don't want it to get caught in my presser foot. So I avoid sewing on that side. It's better for it to come in contact with the feed dogs on the bottom section of the machine than to have it coming in contact with my presser foot, because while it has never happened to me before, but I'm convinced that having this thing being caught in the presser foot may actually damage my machine, and I don't want that to happen. All right, so I'm just ensuring that the threads are the needle is threaded properly, and I also have my bobbin thread available on top as well. So next I'm just going to be placing the design down, lowering my presser foot. I'm going to do a reverse stitch. After I'm through with the reverse stitch, then I'm going to stitch forward all the way down to the corner of the design. Then I'll stop again to show you something very important. And if you notice, as I'm sewing, I'm able to remove the pins easily, and that is because when I'm pinning the fabrics together, I ensure that the head of the pin is turned towards, I pin it in such a way that the ends of the pin turn towards me while I am sewing, because if it's a case where the ends of the pin were towards the needle, then it would be more difficult for me to remove the pins while sewing. So it's very important that you take this into consideration when you are pinning your pieces together. Also, some machines do have a very roomy section there under the arm section, but if you can avoid having the fabric bunched up underneath there, and there's a way that you can keep the fabric to the left of the machine, then it makes the sewing experience way much easier. Now that I'm approaching the end what I'll do is to check as I stitch how close I am to the end, and then when I get to the corner where I'm going to start the other side, I will lower the needle, raise the presser foot, and turn the fabric underneath the machine. So I will not remove it from the machine. I'll ensure that the needle is down in the fabric, raise the presser foot, and turn. After which I will lower the presser foot again and continue sewing. So it's important that you do this when you get to the corner. It makes it way much easier than to remove the project and then have to load it back to the machine and all of that. As you sew, you ensure that all 3 layers are being stitched. You don't want it to be a case where you're stitching and the top layer and the bottom layer is stitched and then the middle layer is not stitched, because then you're going to have your project falling apart. Well, not literally falling apart, but you'll have areas where it is loose. Yes, there are loose areas that needs to be sewn properly. There are times when you actually purchase clothing and you can see where some section did not get caught in the sewing process, and that part will go loose very easily. So you find that you're going to have to be sewing it back together in order for it to basically serve the intended purpose, right? So you don't want to, especially if you're going to make these to sell, you don't want to make a blanket that is pulling apart when the customer receives it. That's not the kind of image you want to represent your brand. Okay, so now I get to the section, the end of it, where I'm actually leaving a portion of it open so I can turn the blanket when I'm through. So what I'm doing now is to trim off the excess fabric, because I want to ensure that I have a nice even border right around the blanket before I turn it on the other side. So I'll basically just cut away all the excess fabric from right around the 4 edges before I do the turning. Okay, so before I turn it, I need to ensure that I cut a 45-degree angle here, or just cut off a triangular shaped piece off the corner. It makes it easier to push out the corners when you're turning, or when you're finished turning, to push the corners out. If you have that bulky piece of fabric there, it won't be easy to push the corner out. So it's important that you cut away that piece, and you do it for all 4 corners. So now here's the opening. I'm going to push my hand in. I'm going to put my hand in, and I'm going to pull through to turn it on the right side. ensure that you poke the corners out. You can use a letter opener or a pen, or you can just use your finger to just push those corners out. Alright, so next I'm going to take this to the ironing board and I'm going to press it down, press the edges down and as much as possible, because of course the batting is on the inside, so it's a little bulky, so you won't really get the edges very flat, but you'll get it a little less bulky, which makes the next step much easier when you're sewing it. Alright, so now that is done, I am going to be showing you how to do the closure for that opening that we left earlier in order to turn the blanket. I'm going to show you how to close up that section. So as you can see, I'm folding the edges in, and right in that corner there, you can cut away that excess batting. I should have done that while I was doing this part. I ended up doing it afterwards because there was a little more than I wanted there, and it made the process a bit challenging to sew that part. So spare yourself the trouble. If you are putting it together and you find that the batting right in that section is a little bit too much, you can cut away some of it and continue with tucking in the edges. Now I'm pinning this together, and again ensure that when you're pinning, the pin head is turned towards you, because if it's turned towards the machine, then it's going to be difficult to remove the pins while you sew. Now I'm going to be sewing the closure, the opening close. So I'm just going to do the reverse stitch, and then I will do forward stitch all the way until I get to where the opening ends. And what I'll do, I'll stitch past the opening just a little, about an inch, just to ensure that I close it properly. The other thing that you need to do when you're stitching this part is that you stay as close to the edge as possible. Also, you need to ensure that both sides are being stitched, because yes, it can look like it's being stitched on the top layer, but when you remove it from underneath when you remove it from the machine, you realize that only the top layer was stitched, and you don't want that to happen. Alright, so the next step is to sew along the edges, leaving about a 1 inch or half an inch border, depending on your preference. And now I'm loading it onto the machine to do this stitch. So just as before, when you're stitching, you need to do the reverse stitch. Then you stitch forward. When you get to the corners, you will raise the presser foot, lower the needle, raise the presser foot, and turn the fabric. Then you lower the presser foot and continue stitching, and you'll do this until you sew all 4 sides. when you're through sewing, you'll stitch past the, you'll turn it, so you'll turn it 4 times, because when you get back to the beginning point, you're going to turn it as well, and then you're going to stitch on top of those first set of stitches just to lock it in place a bit more. And after that, you can basically remove your project from the machine and you'll be finished. So you'll have a nicely stitched reversible baby blanket that you can choose to give someone as a gift, or you can use it for your own baby. This blanket is beautiful as it is, but if you wish, you can add a name on it. Like for example, you could do an embroidery of a full name or an initial, or you can use e-transfer vinyl. I hope that you enjoyed watching this video. Please let me know in the comment section what your thoughts are, and also please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed watching it. If you have not already subscribed, please hit that red subscribe button, turn on your notification. Thank you so much for watching.